host, Alex Garrett.
Well, if I'm playing some Irish music, it must mean one thing. I'm feeling the Irish vibes tonight. And I'll tell you, 13 years ago, I ended up in Ireland, if you don't know that already. And I enjoyed it. I enjoyed going to Dublin. I enjoyed going to basically a lot of places in Ireland. We went to Cork, we went to Dublin, we went to Arglass. We went to different places. And thanks to St. Joseph College for the Deaf's dorms, for being able to house us. And then the other thing is, thanks again to the Physically Challenged Irish American Youth Team. I mean, that team was great. But I recently discovered something. That the little guy from New York City, from Queens, came back with a little Irish brogue. Yes, a little Irish. So I would love to try the Irish accent on this pod tonight and sort of talk about it. Because, in Ireland we went to the Guinness factory, and I did not have a drink. I was 16. Very un-Irish thing to do, I know, but I was still a little bit innocent back then. But I enjoyed my time, and then I had fun at Navan Racecourse, and we also just had a ball in Dublin. I mean, those cobblestones and those... Hold on, I gotta get better at this. I'm gonna get it right. But yes, when I was walking with my girlfriend yesterday, it was fun. It was interesting. And then the Irish just came out. It takes a little bit. It actually happened very impromptu. Like, I just would break out in the Irish brogue. There you go. Right in that tone right there. See, I went to Ireland in 2008, and it was an amazing time, and I ended up having long-lasting friendships. In fact, I got Facebook from that trip because they were like, let's stay in touch. And I was very anti-social media back then, but all of a sudden I said, why not? And I became pretty addicted to Facebook, and I still am today. And then I became Instagram and now TikTok. But yes, that Irish trip broke my social media cherry, if you will. But rolling along the cobblestones, that was really cool. And it's also interesting, I didn't talk about this much, but back then, I had no idea that the traffic was going a different way than in New York. So imagine this New York City kid on his rollerblade, just trying to navigate the cobblestones, and all of a sudden he has to look a different way to get across the street because the guy on the left is moving left to right, not right to left. And so that tour bus, that was very interesting. I had to look and step back pretty quickly. And then the other times I remember about Ireland was that I enjoyed their Magnum ice cream. We talk about Magnum condoms here, but in Ireland they have Magnum ice cream, and it was delicious, and I would do it again. And I've tried to find them here in New York. It's very rare, though, that you actually get some Magnum ice cream. When you do, though, it's a good time. And what else? Oh, we went to a rugby field, and I really wanted to see Irish rugby, and I've heard about Croke Park and that whole thing in Ireland, and it was kind of interesting. Speaking of sports, we did some wiffle ball in the parking lot, and we also did some competition. Yes, see, in Mitchell Field in Long Island, we would always do the different events with the Physically Challenged Irish American Youth Team. As part of the exchange program, we would do it in Ireland. And so sure enough, we did the different field and track and field events, And it was a fun time. I actually still have the medals from that trip in Ireland in 2008. And then you played wiffle ball, and they actually had some hijinks in the dorms. It was quite a good time, and I still talk to Nick. I still talk to Kelly. I still talk to a lot of those people from that amazing trip in Ireland 2008, 13 years ago. Can you believe it's been that long? I can't believe I was 16 at that point. By the way, doing this accent is very tough because I noticed the lungs and the breathing is very different than when you talk in this style, and then when you get into your Irish brogue, it's a little more strain on the voice. I noticed that a little bit. By the way, what's also inspired this was O'Hara's Pub. I was walking by it, and we actually went there, and it was a fun time. But I was like, let me see if I can kick the Irish up, and here we are. And I don't know if I could do an Irish character for you, but if you like it, email me, alex@alexgnyc.com. That's alex@alexgnyc.com, yes. And I don't know if I create a name for this character, but I might. I very well might. And it's not a very thick Irish accent, but it's there. You could tell. By the way, ever know why I love Jameson so much? Jameson is actually a family name. So it's no wonder then that I love the Jameson shots. Oh, nothing like them. At all. I'm a little bit exposing myself here on this podcast about my drinking choice, but that's okay. I'm nearly 30 and I love Jameson. I'm not afraid to say that. But I've got to say Jameson right in the right tone to be Irish enough to say Jameson. Because I love my Jameson. There, that worked a little bit. And I would rollerblade with this girl yesterday through Liberty Park, which preserved the World Trade Center globe that was actually salvaged from the 9/11 attacks. And they have a war monument there, and then you could overlook the reflective pools. It's just a very special area. I've loved the revitalization of downtown Manhattan. I've loved seeing it regrow, rebirth, reborn. I've loved seeing it resilient. You know, the Irish, they're very resilient people. And that is very true for downtown Manhattan. They're very resilient down there. It's unbelievably so. I mean, they have had a lot of renovations. You've had Fulton Street Hub, and you've gotten Trinity Church, and you've got St. Paul's Chapel back open. They're renovating those right now, but at the end of the day, it's always nice to see those in the shadow of the Freedom Tower. And working down there is very, very special. Last year when Tunnel to Towers did their big event, the Vice President of the United States was there. Yes, Mike Pence. It was pretty amazing. And then tomorrow I get to talk with a person named Paulie, who's actually rolling a airplane attendant's cart through the States in honor of the flight attendants that were heroic that day. I'm going to talk to him about that tomorrow, so stay tuned for that. And by the way, thank you, Zach Williams, for joining me yesterday. That was a very needed conversation about Andrew Cuomo. We don't know where this lands. We'll see if the impeachment, I guess they're giving him a week to provide documents for the probe, but it looks like it's going to be happening. And maybe the New York State Assembly can finally do their job. Finally. We have been failed by Albany legislature time and time again, by the way. Not just the governor, but the fact that it's a one-party system up there. Senate and Assembly, they don't hold the governor or anybody accountable. And they need to. Yes, they really need to. Hold the leadership accountable. You know, that was another thing about Ireland. We actually visited the president's house. That was unbelievable. The president of Ireland's house. It's like a White House. Similar form. And it was just great. They had a great piano event there. They had tea for us. They had a lot of things. And it was fun to share that moment with my friends and our chaperones there. And then you can't forget the trip to Northern Ireland. You see, in Southern Ireland, they hate the Northern's guts. There's no doubt about it. But when we crossed the border into Northern Ireland, everything was peace and quiet. Then when we left it, one of my colleagues, chaperone, stepped up and started yelling obscenities at the Northern Irish land. And, you know, and when I saw the IRR, I said, thank God they didn't say IRA. Because we know how bad the Irish Republican Army is, right? And will there ever be a one-state Ireland? I don't know. I don't know if we'll ever get there. I would love to see a one-state Ireland, but I don't know. The differences are very, very deep in those parts of that beautiful country. And the way that trip started, by the way, I'm watching the Yanks and I'm thinking about it. The way that trip started in 2008, Yankees hosted the All-Star Game in that year. And my dad and I were fortunate enough to get tickets to the stadium to get there. Right outside the stadium, we got 2 tickets from a Cardinals organization member. And the game went on for hours into extra innings. I had to get up the next day, go to the American Legion in Albertson. Mom and my stepdad drove. We got there. We went to the airport, went to JFK, took Aer Lingus, I believe is when we took Aer Lingus over to Ireland. It was just quite a trip. It was quite a journey there and then back. But that was a whole start to an amazing trip. I gotta say that All-Star game was just memorable and special. And we got to see them wheel around Mr. Steinbrenner one last time. Because remember, the old stadium was closing up that year. And we got to see him in action in a golf cart, waving to all the fans that loved the man so much. But seriously, if you like the Irish that I'm trying to do here, send me an email, alex@alexgnyc.com. That's alex@alexgnyc.com. And let me know if you'd like me to do more and develop characters and develop voices for you. I don't mind being weird on this podcast. It's why I have it. It's just be what's on my mind. And talking Irish, speaking in an Irish brogue is on my mind. And it's funny because 13 years ago they said, you started to have the brogue. 13 years later, I guess I do. Little by little, right? By the way, I saw that Spreaker stats say that you guys listen only about 30 minutes a show. So I'll try and do that for you the most I can. 20 to 30 minutes is max for me. I think an hour, unless you have two damn good conversations or one solid conversation that can last an hour. Half an hour is not bad. It keeps you gripped. I always believe, though, in that first few minutes of any show, if you don't have them hooked by then, they will tune out. They will tune out. So don't have your podcast tune out, people. Be interesting. Be a little eccentric. Have the voices. Do a little Irish brogue if you can. Make your podcast less rigid and more fun and more relaxed and laid back. As I feel right now, talking to you about this in the accent. So I'm very much looking forward to tomorrow. Then the weekend looks like I'm going to have my buddy Jeff Murdoch on to talk about his move. Jeff Murdoch went from DOJ to White House correspondent for the Washington Times. Congratulations, Jeff. Cannot wait to talk to you about it. It does seem that there's a lot of different things going on in the White House. We've got Biden about his butt wipe. What was that about? Him going on about against DeSantis, Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor, and him calling on Cuomo to resign. A lot has happened this week in Washington, in New York City, in New York State. You want to know my thoughts about the mandated vaccine? I will tell you. And I've told you this before. When we were kids, we had to get our vaccines. Doctors need you to get vaccines. This is not abnormal. This is not rights infringing. Because when you look at the stats and see that the Delta variant is in many people that are unvaccinated, the stats don't lie. We do need to fix that. I have yet to see if Ireland has actually picked up the mandates again or whatnot. But Ireland's had their sicknesses as well, and the famine, and yet here they are, hundreds of years later. A beautiful country to have been in. And I would love to go again, especially now that I could talk like an Irishman. I might be 30% Irish, but I'll tell you, it's one of my favorite parts of me. There's some Irish pride in there that I can't even discuss. And then when I read about Rudy, you know, from the movie about Notre Dame, makes me want to put on my Irish shirt all the time. And I feel very connected to Notre Dame. And I would love to go to South Bend and see Touchdown Jesus. And see the touchdowns by the Irish. The Fighting Irish. 100%. For now, I'm Alex Garrett. Congratulations. Back to sports for a minute. Congratulations to Edgardo Alfonzo, John Matlack, for being inducted into the Mets Hall of Fame this past weekend. Edgardo Alfonzo, if you don't remember him, you had to have. He was a great man, a great player on the field. He is a great man, great player on the field, solid hitter, clutch, all-around good person, all-around athlete. And congrats on him joining Piazza in that Mets Hall of Fame. Very cool stuff. And for the Yanks, the COVID woes continue. Gary Sanchez also being positive today Something's got to give there. Something's got to give with this virus, man. If the Irish could fight the pox, then we could fight COVID-19. I'm Alex Garrett. Have a beautiful evening and enjoy a little more of the Irish jig. Have a good night.